All right, so how to buy masterclass, July 2023 version. I start out every single one of my monthly masterclasses with the question of, is this a good time to buy a home? Once I go through that question, then I transition into the topic of the month. So the topic for this month is on what's a first-time home buyer and what are my benefits and why does it matter? So I every month have a different topic that I talk about. So you can go back through my library of master classes on my YouTube channel, and you can check out any of those classes that I had posted in the past to get information about things like closing costs and how they work, or down payment assistance programs, lots of different things. So today we'll be talking about what's a first-time home buyer, and then we'll spend the final part going through something I cover every masterclass, and that is the process from A to Z, how to go about buying a home, the pre-approval process, the shopping process, and really help you understand the big picture of the home buying process. So let's go ahead and dive into, is now a good time to buy a home? So here's the deal. We're in July of 2023. We're a good year and a half into pretty serious inflation, and the Fed has spent the last year raising interest rates to shut down inflation. And it was a necessary battle. It was necessary for the Fed to raise interest rates because not only did we have inflation with groceries and vehicle prices, but we had inflation in the housing market that was getting a bit out of control. And so what's happened is interest rates have shot up from 3% to 6.5% to 7%. And we expected last fall that by summer of 2023, we were going to see lower interest rates. Problem is, predicting interest rates is like predicting the weather. You just don't know. You use the best of what the tools are in front of you. You look at trends of what's happened in the past. And we expected that the Fed was going to stop raising interest rates this summer. And that was going to lead to rates starting to come down on the mortgage side. That's not what happened. Inflation is staying stronger than anybody had expected. Now, it doesn't mean that it's not coming down. It is coming down. It's just not coming down as quickly as we would like. And the Fed is being super persistent. And the problem is that means rates are going to stay higher longer. We're really going to be in a position where you have to decide, hey, am I willing to buy now with higher interest rates and higher monthly payments than where the interest rate might be in a year? And that's a really important question to consider. But the second part of that question is, where are house prices going to be in a year? So if we rewind 12 months ago, we've seen house prices stay steady and in some markets drop just a little bit. Now, why did they drop? They dropped because interest rates went up. Because the average consumer, the average home buyer said, look, I can't pay that monthly payment that comes with this high interest rate, or I won't. I'm just not willing to pay that monthly payment that comes with this high interest rate. I'm out. I'm not going to buy. Fewer buyers means sellers cannot increase their price as much, and so prices stabilized. But those buyers still want to buy. And the people who said, I'm unwilling to make that high of a monthly payment, or the people who said, I'm unable to qualify for that high of a monthly payment, they're coming back into the market as soon as interest rates come back down. Well, guess what? Supply and demand says that means that prices are going to go back up because there aren't enough homes built for the number of people that need them. And that started 15 years ago in the Great Recession, when home builders stopped building homes and home buyers stopped buying homes and everything was fine. The problem is that buyers are coming back and wanting to buy homes and builders can't catch up. They had supply chain issues in 2021 and 2022, and they can't build homes fast enough. And now they're not building them as fast because there's fewer people wanting to buy them. And so it's creating a major catch-22. What does it really mean to you? What it really means to you is if you can afford the monthly payment today, you're likely to be better off buying today because you lock in today's price. You can refinance later in a year or two, which is our current projection for when rates are going to go back down. You're going to be able to lower your monthly payment and keep the same purchase price that you had instead of waiting a year or two for rates to come down. Sure, you can lower your interest rate, but it's offset by a higher purchase price. The key is can you afford the monthly payments? Now, there's a really big difference between what am I comfortable spending versus what can I afford. And I'll tell you that it is almost impossible as a first-time home buyer to buy a house with a payment you're comfortable spending. That kind of sucks. Like, if you really think about it, I want to have a payment similar to what I'm paying in rent. Maybe I'll pay a little bit more than what I'm paying in rent. And the crazy thing is rents have continued to go up. But the fact of the matter is, because house prices are still up, and I don't expect them to come down, but interest rates are up, you're typically going to take a jump up in monthly payment the moment that you become a homeowner. What you're counting on, what I'm telling you is a likely outcome, is there's going to be a point in the not too distant future when rents have continued to go up, but your house price payment came down because you were able to refinance. That's the moment when you're glad that you became a homeowner. Now, there's a lot of things before that that make you glad to become a homeowner, but timing wise, homeownership is great in not having to wait for your landlord to give you permission to do work on the house. It's great because you don't have to worry about the landlord changing their mind and selling the home and evicting you. But that's true no matter when you buy the home. So the question that I get a lot is what I'm trying to answer now, is now a good time to buy a home? It is if you're able to stretch your budget to afford the monthly payment today, knowing that it's likely that payment's going to be lower down the road. And you get financial benefits like tax write-offs, a forced savings account in paying down your balance every month, and some appreciation as house prices go up. So that's the big picture of where I think the market is and what my answer is to why now is a good time to buy a home. So anybody that's watching on Zoom or on the Facebook stream, feel free to post questions. I'll happily answer those questions as we're talking. Otherwise, I'm going to move on to our topic of the month. And the topic of the month is, am I a first-time home buyer? And does it really matter? Like, why would I care about being a first-time home buyer? Is there really a benefit to being a first-time home buyer? I get that question all the time. And the answer, the simplest answer is maybe it matters. The simplest answer is being a first-time home buyer can give you some benefits, but most of the time people think, oh my gosh, I'm a first-time home buyer. I should get a significantly better deal because I'm a first-time home buyer. Well, the fact is the first-time home buyer has not proven themselves in managing a house payment and managing to, be responsible for the maintenance of the home and manage their budget well. So in some ways, being a first-time home buyer, it's a bigger risk to the bank. And so people think, oh my gosh, I should get all these benefits. I should get these grants and these programs. Well, here's the truth. Over time, there are different programs that come in and they come out. So there are ways that you can save money and there's ways that you can get access to special programs. Right now, there's some ways where you might be able to get a lower interest rate because you're a first-time home buyer. But those programs come and go. So when you talk to a friend of yours who says, oh my gosh, I bought a home as a first-time home buyer, I got a tax credit of $5,000 on my taxes the following year. That happened in like 2010. So we're talking 13 years ago when that tax credit was available, but I still have people every once in a while coming in saying, hey, my uncle bought a home and he said there's a tax credit you get as a one-time benefit for home ownership. Well, what's really happening is the definition of a first-time home buyer was created simply for the federal government to incentivize renters to become homeowners. And the only way they can really define that is to say, well, how do we determine who's the population of people that are renters that we've converted to homeownership? Now, why do they want to convert renters to homeownership? The federal government believes, and I would agree with them, that being a homeowner makes you a more stable participant in your local community. Now, I'm not telling you as a renter that you're not a stable participant in your local community, but as a homeowner, you have a vested interest. I got a little fly that's bugging me today. Anyway, as a homeowner, you've got a vested interest in making sure that that community stays a great community because the value of your home depends on it. You're less likely to leave the neighborhood and you're thinking you're going to raise your kids there. So you're a little more concerned about the bond issues that are being voted on and the policy that's going on in the local city. And finally, being a homeowner in general, you're at least 10 times wealthier than the average renter. Why? Because you're building wealth through owning your home. You're making a payment every single month, and over time, you're building what's called equity. Equity is the difference between what the house is worth and what you owe. That money is your money once you sell the home. So you are wealthy simply by doing what you would have done before by paying rent, except you're paying it in your own home as a mortgage. And the government understands that. And so they've said, we need to find ways, first of all, to track how many first-time home buyers are we putting to become a homeowner that wasn't a homeowner before. The problem is the rules are different depending upon the program, and the programs are different depending upon what the federal government, what the state government, what the county government, and what the city government are trying to promote. Also depends on how much money they have. So depending upon where we're at in the economic cycle, we may have a lot of benefits of being a first-time home buyer. We may have very few benefits of being a first-time home buyer. So let's dive in and talk about what really is the definition of a first-time home buyer. Well, I'm going to give you a general definition, but I'll break it down a little bit. Most loan programs consider a first-time home buyer as someone who has not owned their primary residence any time in the last 3 years. So that's ownership, occupancy, and a 3-year look back. So if you bought a home 10 years ago and you sold it 5 years ago and you've rented ever since, you are a first-time home buyer again because you have not owned your primary residence in the last 3 years. Now, what if you bought that home 10 years ago in Texas and 5 years ago you moved to California and you kept that home as a rental property and you rented in California because you just didn't want to or weren't sure you were going to stay in California, so you rented. Well, it's been longer than 3 years that you have not lived in the residence that you owned. So therefore, you're a first-time home buyer again. Now, some programs look at it and they take one step further, a couple steps further. One is you also might have to look at your spouse's ownership, because this is a loophole that's been used quite a bit in the past where we say, hey, we're going to buy just in my name. And then 2 years from now, we'll buy another home and we'll buy it just in my spouse's name. And therefore, we both get to count as first-time home buyers. Most loan programs still allow for that loophole, but some don't. Some loan programs, specifically the California Dream for All loan program, says we're not going to count you as a first-time home buyer if you've lived anytime in the last 3 years in a home that you have owned or a home that was owned by your spouse. So that can preclude you from being a first-time home buyer in some programs, but still allow you to be a first-time home buyer in other programs, okay? Some programs don't care about occupancy. They just say if you've owned any home in the last 3 years, whether you lived in it or not. So there isn't one definition, but a majority of them are pretty close to the first definition I gave you, which is you cannot have owned your primary residence in the last 3 years. And the final thing I want to say about those rules is it's not about when you bought it. It's when you didn't occupy it. So I've had clients say, oh, John, I'm a first-time home buyer because I haven't bought a home in the last 3 years. That's not what it says. It says you haven't lived in a home that you owned anytime in the last 3 years. You haven't owned your primary residence anytime in the last 3 years. You could have bought the home 30 years ago and you've lived in it the whole time and you paid off the mortgage and now you're debt-free and you want to buy another one, but you still own that home that you lived in. That means you're not a first-time home buyer. Now, if you bought that home 30 years ago and you sold it 5 years ago and you've rented ever since, or you turned it into a rental 5 years ago or 3 years ago, now you are a first-time home buyer. So what are the benefits of being a first-time home buyer? First of all, better interest rates can be a benefit. I'll tell you that for a lot of the programs, the first-time home buyer benefits actually come with higher interest rates when you're utilizing the second benefit, which is a lower down payments. And then the third piece, and I'll explain this more in detail, The third piece is you have access to additional programs. There's lots of programs out there that give you benefits as a first-time home buyer, and we're going to talk through those tonight. So first of all, better interest rates. Up until recently, this was something that most people were shocked when I told them, hey, as a first-time home buyer, you don't get any better interest rates. And they thought, well, gosh, no, I should be incentivized and I should get a better rate. And the truth is, you don't. Until now. Recently, Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, who are the two government departments, semi-government departments, that oversee the rules for home mortgages, they came out with a program that we call our Affordable Advantage Program. And it says if you make less than 100% or sometimes 120% of the area median income, or AMI, for the county that you are buying in, you can get, and you're a first-time home buyer, you can take advantage of this program. Now, how do you find that out? You simply look up, you Google it, you go Fannie Mae area median income, and it takes you to a website that you can simply put in your address or the city, and it will tell you what the limit is for that county. And as a matter of fact, the trick is if it tells you there's a 120% number, then you could go to 120%. If it only gives you the 100% number, then you can only go to 100%. And the reason why is because each of those counties, some of them are high cost or more expensive counties. Other ones are normal counties that are not high cost. So when you're looking at getting a better interest rate as a first-time home buyer, you want to look at the Fannie Mae area median income website. And I'll do that for you. So if you want to do the self-serve version, you can do it yourself. If you go full serve and have me help you out with your home buying journey, I'll look at that for you and determine if you qualify for this program. Now, we got to be careful because we can't layer all of these together. But in this case, if you're simply looking at, hey, John, I want to buy a home and I've got my own money for down payment, I've got my own money, or I'm getting some help from the seller for closing costs. I don't need any other programs or benefits for being a first-time home buyer, but I want this better interest rate. What happens is you actually save money. How much money you save depends on how much risk we were actually taking in the first place. Because really what's happening with our Affordable Advantage Program, if you're a first-time home buyer, is we're not charging any loan level price adjustments. Now, that's great, John. You're not charging for a a loan level price adjustment. What does that mean? Here's what a loan level price adjustment is. You don't need, by the way, you can Google this. This is online too. Fannie Mae LLPA. But what it really is it's like insurance companies that have actuarial tables. If you know anything about insurance, and it says, hey, based upon certain factors, determines whether you're a higher risk or a lower risk. And in this case, the factors that Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac care about are two things. They care about your credit score, and they care about how much we're loaning you compared to the value of the home. So credit score and LTV, or loan to value range. Now, this is built into every single loan that you do. So if you look, this is how much extra you pay depending upon the risk of your loan. And obviously, if you have a lower credit score, you should pay a higher interest rate. But there's some offsets. For example, if you're putting 70% down payment, so we're only loaning you 30% of the value of the home, everybody gets the best interest rate no matter how bad your credit score is. Why? Well, because you're putting so much of a down payment, there's really no way we could lose money. So I don't care how bad your credit is. As long as you have enough income and at least you meet the minimum of credit, we're going to let you go ahead and get the best possible interest rates. But here's the deal. Even if you have the best credit score and you're putting 20% down, you're still paying a higher interest rate than somebody who has horrible credit and is putting 70% down. Well, this entire chart is filled with zeros when you're a first-time home buyer with your own down payments of at least 3% of the purchase price, and you or the seller are paying your own closing costs, then you don't have to pay any of these fees. That means you could be at the lowest end of the credit score range. So you're at, let's call it 640 to 659, not necessarily the lowest. and you're putting 10% down. You're supposed to pay 2% extra in the cost of that loan for the risk. And instead, it's zero. So this Affordable Advantage program is a huge savings. Now, savings in mortgage world can be translated to lower fee or lower rates, just like the increase in the risk of a loan is translated into either higher fee or higher rate. So I'm not going to get too deep into that piece of it during tonight's webinar, but I want to really make it clear. If you already are putting 25% down payment and you have a 780 credit score, and you say, hey, John, I watched your webinar. Thanks for watching the webinar. And I saw that I can save those loan level price adjusters with your Affordable Advantage program. I'd like to qualify for it. You're actually not saving anything because we weren't charging you anything. There was nothing to save. So it's a unique program that basically wipes out all of these additional costs for the risk of your loan. So depending upon where you're at, it might be a small amount of savings. It might be a huge amount of savings, but no matter what, it's all zeros across the board. All right, as a reminder, if you're watching this through the Facebook stream, you can post comments into Facebook. If you're watching this live on Zoom, you can post comments into Zoom. I love to be interactive, so if you have any questions, please feel free to ask them. And if you're watching this recorded after the fact on YouTube or on any other social media, post your comments into the comments section and we'll get back to them later. All right, so let's go ahead and keep going. Let's talk about another benefit. Again, tonight's topic is on a lot of things we cover, but the unique topic for tonight is what is a first-time home buyer and what are my benefits of being a first-time home buyer? Well, here's what's interesting. Most people think, oh my gosh, if I am a first-time home buyer, I get to put a smaller down payment. There's only one case that you have to be a first-time home buyer to put a smaller down payment, and that's a conventional loan. Conventional loans say if you're a first-time home buyer, you can put 3% down. If you're not a first-time home buyer, you have to put 5% as a down payment, but you don't have to put 20% down. So many people think to buy a home, you've got to have a huge down payment. I'll get to it in a little bit later, but there's a lot of down payment assistance programs that are out there. But even if you're not using a program, you only need 3% down when you're a first-time home buyer on a conventional loan. And if you aren't a first-time home buyer, it's only 5% down. It's not that big of a difference. But here's the biggest misunderstanding. FHA, the 3.5% down payment loan that really is more forgiving than conventional loans, because FHA doesn't use that whole LLPA matrix. They basically say, you know what, you're close enough, we're forgiving, we're good. So FHA is a very flexible program, but so many people think you must be a first-time home buyer to use FHA. That's simply not true. What you cannot do is have two FHA loans at the same time. So if you have an FHA loan, you cannot buy another house using another FHA loan. But if you have a conventional loan on a home, or if you sold a house last year and now you have no loans, but you've owned your primary residence in the last 3 years since you only sold it a year ago, you can still use FHA. You can still put 3.5% down. You don't have to be a first-time home buyer to use FHA. Here's another one. We have a program, I talked about this. This was actually a big part of my talk in my June masterclass, was how to buy a home with just 1% down payment. We have a program. It's really the 3% down payment conventional loan, except that you get a grant for 2% to go with it. So you're only putting 1% down plus closing costs. But most importantly, you're paying zero mortgage insurance, and you don't have to be a first-time home buyer. So there's an example where you could have sold a home. Maybe you got a bunch of equity out of it, maybe you didn't. But the fact is, if you got a bunch of equity out of the sale of that home, you can keep that in your pocket and use it for something else. And you can buy a home up to $350,000. That's one of the bigger challenges. And you have to be below 80% of the area median income. But you can buy a home with just 1% down payment, and you have a cheaper monthly payment than any of the other options out there because you pay zero mortgage insurance. It's an amazing program. Tough to do in the state of California simply because of house prices. This program only goes up to a $350,000 purchase price, but it is an amazing option that doesn't require you to be a first-time home buyer. All right, so now let's talk about the additional programs that you get access to for being a first-time home buyer. So one of the first ones I really like is one that is kind of funny, that the people in Southern California have this figured out, and my friends in Northern California, they haven't. Here's why. There's a grant that is a $10,000 grant for first-time home buyers. So if you are a first-time home buyer, you may qualify for this $10,000 grant. Now, there's a couple of caveats, some pretty big ones, but you may qualify for this $10,000. Now, why do I say our friends in Southern California have figured it out? Because they had filled up their coffers with $500 million, just half program, filled up their buckets with $500 million of money available for use to give away $10,000 grants. And they split the state in half. And they said, Northern California, you have $250,000 available. Southern California, you have $250,000 available. This was back in May. So we're now 60 days into it. As of last week, Southern California has used all of their money. They were all over it. That money is gone. Northern California still has $210,000 out of the $250,000 left over. And I personally did one of those loans. So that's only 4 families in Northern California that took advantage of this $10,000 grant. And one of my clients was one of those 4 families. So far, I've got 25% of the money from Northern California. And if you're in Northern California, I'd love to have you be one of the other people that keeps me at or above 25% of that total amount of money. Now, here's the rules on that program. You must be a first-time home buyer. You must make under the income limit. I actually don't have the number off the top of my head, but I have a video about the HAF program that you can look up on my YouTube channel. But you got to make under the income limit based upon not just the county you're in, but your family size. So some income limit programs go as deep as talking about family size, and other ones just homogenize it together and say, no matter how big your family is, you're fine. You can't have more than $20,000. You can't have more than $20,000 of your own money left over after you pay your down payment and your closing costs, plus the 10 grand you get from the Housing Affordability Fund. The most important requirement is you must be from an underserved community. Now, there's 3 definitions of an underserved community. You're either a person of color, you're a person with a disability, a physical, mental, or cognitive disability, or you're a member of the LGBTQ plus community. If you're one of those 3 underserved communities as defined by the federal government, then the state of California, oh, by the way, you have to be using a California Association of Realtors licensed real estate agent, because it's the California Association of Realtors that's backing this fund. So as long as you're using a realtor for your purchase, you're a first-time home buyer, you are under the income limits, you have less than 20 grand left over after you purchase a home, so it's need-based in that regard, and you're a member of an underserved community, a person of color, a person with a disability, or a person who's a member of the LGBTQ plus community, you qualify for $10,000 of free money. I kid you not, it is free money. This is one of the few times when the money really is free, because a lot of these programs, they're not free money. A lot of these programs, you'll find as I talk about it, you're paying them back in some way, shape, or form, or you're paying a higher interest rate for the benefit of it. So let's move on past the HAF program. Let's talk about the CalHAFA My Home and Zip program. So the CalHAFA My Home and Zip program is a program that is specifically for first-time home buyers that gives you your down payments, your 3% or your 3.5% down, depending upon whether we do conventional or FHA. And the ZIP program gives you an additional 2 to 3% to help pay for your closing costs. Now, this one comes at a cost. If you use the ZIP program, ZIP means you pay ZIP or 0 interest for that money. Oh, I just got a question in here. Owner says, originally from Istanbul, Turkey, does it help me to qualify as an underserved community? So whether you're an immigrant or not, it's more about whether your country of origin is part of the list of persons of color. Now, my understanding is that Turkey would fit into, Middle Eastern, and I believe that does qualify under person of color. So I think that the answer is yes, but I don't want to tell you for sure. There's actually a link that I can send to you that breaks down what is the definition of a person of color, what nationalities. When I first saw this program, that was my first question. How do you define a person of color? So there actually is a link that goes to the federal government's website that outlines and defines specifically what a person of color is. But in your case, my estimation is yes, that I believe that the Middle East is considered to be a person of color. All right. Hopefully that helps. Thank you so much for the question. I want to remind everybody to make this as interactive as possible. So please, 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 I encourage you to give me your questions if you're watching live. If you're watching recorded, post the questions and I'll catch up with them afterwards. Okay. So the My Home program, the My Home assistance, you're charged interest on that assistance money, but you make no payments on it. The Zip loan, you're not charged any interest and you make no payments. But your big mortgage, your rate goes up significantly, like to the tune of 1% extra per year to get 2% help up front. Well, that basically says is if you keep this loan for longer than 2 years, you're losing money because you paid 1% more in interest every year to get 2% help from the state on your down payment or on your closing costs. Now, I think in this market, it's reasonable to think you're going to refinance before the end of 2 years. So in the past, I had kind of said, you know what, that's not worth paying that much extra. Right now, it's actually not a bad idea. If you can afford the monthly payment and the monthly payment is less important than the cash out of pocket, then this is a great way to go. We have to compare the two as a balancing act. The two things I'm referring to are monthly payments and cash that you need up front. If you go with a program that requires less cash up front, then your monthly payment's likely to be higher. If you go with a program that needs more cash up front, or at least you have your own money for down payment and closing costs, it's often that you can have a lower interest rate. So I'll talk more about that in a couple of minutes. Another example of a program that you have access to because you're a first-time home buyer is the Cal HFA, California Dream for All program. So Dream for All is an amazing program that gives you a loan for 20% of the purchase price to help you come up with the down payment. You get a significantly lower monthly payment. You get to not have to pay mortgage insurance. It's an amazing program. Now, there's a high cost to it. You're paying back the state a portion of your appreciation. Now, it's not really a bad deal because the state invested in 20% of your purchase price. They get back the appreciation on that 20% they paid in. So it's a pretty good deal. As a matter of fact, so many people thought it was a good deal that when it was released for the first time in March of 2023, just earlier this year, it ran out in 8 business days. $300 million ran out in 8 business days. Now that program is coming back again sometime in the next 9, 10, 11 months. Now that's it could be 3 to 11 months. Let's put it that way. The program is coming out again. There's only $200 million available in the program. So there's less money and there's more pent-up demand. So I'm trying to help my clients get ahead of it. And so I do this monthly masterclass on the 3rd Thursday of every month to talk about how to buy a home. Well, on the last Monday of every month, I'm doing my masterclass on, I won't call it a masterclass. It's my preparation class for getting prepared for Dream for All, because the program requires you to be ready to act right away. And so if you're not getting your ducks in a row, if you don't even know what it's going to take to get your ducks in a row, but you don't want to set up a one-on-one appointment to talk to me about it, that's okay. Just come to my webinar this Monday, the 31st at 7 p.m. I'll be having my first of those webinars. Email my office. Our contact information will be in the post down below, but you can email us at kingteam@johnloneking.com and we can get you registered for that webinar. Cal HFA's Dream for All program requires you to be a first-time home buyer. So it's another benefit that you get for being a first-time home buyer. The last thing as a benefit of being a first-time home buyer is local DAP or down payment assistance programs. By the way, it's a pet peeve of mine that you use an acronym and then you use a word inside the acronym outside of the acronym. And I did exactly that. So I said local down payment assistance programs, but they're called DAP programs. Anyway, enough about my pet peeves. So the fact of the matter is, every city, every county, really across the country, has the opportunity to create programs for their local first-time home buyers. And they're all very, very different. And not all cities or counties have programs. Not all the programs that are out there have money. So it's very important that you do your research or you work with a lender like me who understands a lot of these different programs. I was looking at a program today in San Diego County. It's actually a pretty amazing program. They will give you a loan for 17% of your purchase price. You just have to come up with the 3% down payment. Now, there's unique rules on some of this stuff. For example, the San Diego County program says that 3% down, it's got to be your money. You can't get it from a gift. You can't get it from any other assistance program. So if you're buying a $700,000 home in San Diego County, you've got to come up with $21,000 for your down payment. But then they're going to give you 17%. So on that $700,000 home, that's $119,000 that they are giving you in down payment assistance. Think about that for a second. If you're buying a home in San Diego County and you meet their income limits and you're a first-time home buyer, you can buy a $700,000 home and you're only making payments on $560,000. Well, there you go, Omar. You are from San Diego, so that was pretty good. Honor. That's pretty good. So San Diego has an amazing program. So let's go ahead and get you signed up for that one. That program means you can buy a $700,000 home. You're making payments only on $560,000, and you only had to pay $21,000 in down payment. Now we got to worry about closing costs. Now this is one of those situations where we may be able to get you the $10,000 grant, although owner, you're in Southern California, so that money is gone. But if you move to Northern California, we got those $10,000 grants for you. And by the way, that grant program through the Housing Affordability Fund, it comes back with money periodically. Last year, it actually had $1 million in it. They blew through all of that last year. This year, they got $500,000. And again, they've blown through 290,000 of that, but only Northern California has the 210,000 that are remaining. So yes, Casey, Fair Oaks, absolutely. So I don't know about Fair Oaks as far as a local program. So Sacramento County has a program. The SCHRA, Sacramento County Housing and Redevelopment Agency, has a program. But here's a good example. By the way, it sounds like I know everything about every county across the state. I kind of got lucky that the two people that are on asking questions right now are in areas that I've researched lately. So Fair Oaks is in Sacramento County. Sacramento County, the only program that has money right now is the SCHRA, but it works very, very different because they use their assistance money for specific homes that have been put through their rehab program. So kind of a Habitat for Humanity type of situation, not specifically Habitat, but they are renovating, they're buying homes, they're renovating them, and then they're selling them through their program. So you can't use their money to buy any home. You can only use their money to buy the home that they have that they're selling. And the problem is it's a mad rush for literally what I've seen is 100+ people that are going to be looking for that one home. There was a home that came out in March, April with the Sacramento County Housing and Redevelopment Agency. And I know of at least 100+ people that had been applying to buy that home. So it is a mad rush to get that. Honor, I submitted documents yesterday. Awesome, we have an appointment on Monday morning. So let's take the San Diego 17%. I agree completely. So if you want to follow in on our shoes, you absolutely can do so. I'll show you at the end how you can start the application process. And then my team will reach out. We'll set up a Zoom call or a phone call, or you can hop on a plane and fly up to Sacramento area. Or Casey, who's in the Sacramento area, you can come meet me in person. So either way, I serve all over the state of California and am licensed in multiple states, and I have partners within my company that cover 43 of the 50 states across the country. So no matter where you're at, the difference is these programs are different in every state, but I actually have a national down payment assistance program. In the state of California, our state programs are better than my national program. So I don't ever talk about the national program to my clients in the States. The state programs are pretty amazing in the state of California. Some of the local programs are amazinger. Is amazinger a word? I don't know. It's my word today. So some of the local programs are obviously it's more amazing, but I like amazinger. So that's my word of the day. So some of the local programs are better than the state program. Some of the state programs are better than the national program, but if there isn't a local or a state program, the national program is a great option. I know the state of Texas has a great down payment assistance program. I know the state of Arizona doesn't. They used to have one. They got rid of it a couple of years ago and they haven't come back with it. So there's a lot of differences with different programs. And that's where you have to understand and do the research with me. So I cannot be an expert in every municipality. I know a lot, but I read it over every single time. I'm double checking. If you're not working with someone who double checks and just assumes, oh, I know how all that works, you're in trouble because this industry is changing so quickly. Things are so dynamic. You've got to have an expert in your corner. Yes, by the way, the time that you're spending with me is me interviewing for the job to be your lender. So I am being very specific. I want to earn that job. I've been doing this for 23 years. That does not make me good at what I do. My ability to explain difficult things in a simple way and to guide you through the process, that's why you should work with me. The fact that I've been doing it for a long time, tenure doesn't mean a whole lot. It's knowledge and ability to make it happen for you that matters. So these are some of the additional programs you can use for down payment assistance. But here's the big deal. The big deal is, should I? Like, big wow, John, okay, I'm a first-time home buyer. Oh man, I'm not a first-time home buyer. And so, you know, do I need these? What am I missing out on since I'm not a first-time home buyer? Or do I really want to take advantage of these things if I am a first-time home buyer? I had a client yesterday buying in the Central Valley, and it was a young man and his father. The young man's buying, and he just graduated college with his master's degree, and dad's helping him to find a home. And as we talked about these down payment assistance programs he qualified for, the dad said, you know what? I don't want any of those. I'd like to get him the program that gives him the lower interest rate, the Affordable Advantage program that we talked about earlier. But the fact of the matter is, his son's likely to make more than that because he's got an advanced degree and he's going to make a good income. So there's a good chance he's going to exceed that income limit. Congratulations, he's making good money. But here's the truth. In most cases of down payment assistance, it is not free money. So you were told a long time ago, if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. Omar, even the Omar, honor. Anyway, I apologize. I'm butchering your name, and I keep wanting to call you Omar. Honor, you're in San Diego County. It's a 17% down payment assistance, but guess what? That money has to get paid back later. And when you refinance, they're usually going to require you to pay it back when you refinance. So it's going to make it a bigger challenge when you go to refinance to say, well, gosh, do I keep my loan right now so that I only have to pay on the 80%? Or should I pull the trigger and refinance, but now I have to pay back that money, and now I got to start making payments on the full $679,000. So there's never an easy path. But what I promise is I'm going to give you good advice and help guide you through that. I'm not here simply to help you purchase your home. You're stuck with me for the rest of your life. Yes, you're stuck with me for the rest of your life. I've been doing this for a long time. I plan on doing it for a lot longer. And I've built my legacy around taking great care of clients and them coming back to me for the right advice. So I'm going to guide you on what to do to accomplish your goals today, but I'm going to talk to you about what your goals are down the road so that we can make sure we're accomplishing those as well. And that's really the key to the second bullet point. Should I, even if it's free money or not free money, you've got to look at what are the long-term and short-term costs, and what are my long and short-term life plans? Some of these programs require that you intend to occupy this home for the next 3 years. Some of them, if you sell the house before 3 or 5 years, you've got to pay back a portion of the money. Even the ones that say they're forgiven require you sometimes to keep the money, to keep the ownership of the home in order to, for a period of time, in order for the money to truly be forgiven. So just be careful, because it isn't as simple as you'd like it to be, but just know that I'm going to guide you and give you the best possible advice. Yeah, the final thing I want to say about this is we always want to think about our next best alternative. So we might say, oh my gosh, Sean, I really want to come up with the least amount of money out of pocket. I'd like the down payment assistance program that gives me the maximum amount of benefit. That is a great thing to look at. But I always want you to compare, what does it look like if I come up with a little bit of my own money? How much does that next best alternative change things? And is it worth it to me? A lot of these assistance programs come with higher interest rates or higher fees or both. So you've got to make a decision, and that's where I'm going to show you options. And we have what your goal is. My goal is to spend the least amount out of pocket. Great. But let me show you, if you're able to come up with a little bit more, let's see the difference. I don't care either way, but I want to give you guidance and advice to say, hey, this is my first choice, but what's my next best alternative? And once we look at that, sometimes we decide, you know what? That alternative is actually the right way to go. So hopefully this was helpful in the first segment of our time together tonight. What I do is, and I said at the beginning, I break this up into a couple of chunks. So the first chunk that I talked about is now a good time to buy a home. I cover that every single month, and it's just a little bit different every month because it depends on what's happening in the market. The second chunk is a brand new topic. Tonight's topic I just finished, which is what does it mean to be a first-time home buyer, and should I use those benefits? And then the third segment is the same segment I do every single month. So if you've seen my masterclass before, you can tune out, because this is a repeat of what I talk about every single month, because it really is the A to Z of buying a home. What do banks look for? How does the loan process work? What do I need to be thinking about? That's what we're going to cover for the next 30 to 40 minutes. We'll get you out of here by 8:30. So buckle up and let's go through the ride. And let's talk about what do banks look for and how does the loan process work? So first of all, the first key that we look for is cash. Now, cash is a 4-letter word. It literally is a 4-letter word, but cash is a bad word. Okay, we were told as kids, right? That's a 4-letter word because all the bad words were 4-letter words. Well, guess what? Cash is a 4-letter word. It's a bad word if we're talking about green pieces of paper with pictures of presidents on them. So if you have cash at home or cash in a safe, I can't use that money. I've got to be able to prove where the money came from. Now, it can come from a gift, but we have to know that you don't have to repay that gift. It can come from money that you just deposited from an earned income source, your recent paycheck, your tax refund, the sale of a car. That money can be deposited immediately, and we can use it immediately. People misunderstand and they think, oh my gosh, the bank won't let you use any money until you've had it in the bank for 2 months. That's just not true, unless it's money we don't know where it came from. And then, yeah, we're going to require, if we can see that it just came in the last 2 months, because all we ever look at is 2 months of bank statements. So if I see the money coming into the bank anytime in the last 2 months, we're going to ask you where it came from. If it didn't come from a valid source, I'm throwing it away. Now, here's a pro tip. Don't withdraw that money from the bank account, because you're actually hurting yourself twice. Let me give you a simple example. Let's pretend that you've had $8,000 in your savings account for the last year. It's just been sitting there. And then you deposit $2,000. So now you got 10, but that deposit was cash, and that was money you had sitting at home. And so you put that $2,000 in there, and you come to me in a month and you say, hey, John, I want to buy a house and I've got 10 grand in the bank. And I look at it and I say, where'd that $2,000 come from? Yeah, it was a deposit. I had that money at home. And I tell you, I can't use that money. I can only use the $8,000, but you're going to need about $9,000 for your closing costs. So we need to get $1,000 from somewhere else. And so you say, okay, no problem, John, I'll take care of it. And so you get a gift from a family member for that extra $1,000. But you're shopping for a home for another month and you find the perfect home. And you give me an updated bank statement, and that bank statement only shows $8,000 in there. And I said, well, what, your balance has dropped by $2,000. And you go, yeah, I know, I haven't gotten the gift yet. I understand you haven't gotten the gift, but what happened to, you had 10,000 in there, now you have 8. You said, well, yeah, John, you said you couldn't use the other $2,000, so I went ahead and took it out. Well, the problem is that now I have to take the $8,000 that you have today, and I still subtract 2,000 of money that was deposited that we don't know where it came from. It's kind of a funky rule that the mortgage industry uses, but it makes sense if you understand it, because all that money is what's called commingled. It's all thrown together into one pot and it's shaken up and you can't tell which dollars are which. And so when you put in the $2,000, it becomes the grand total, part of the grand total of the account. Every dollar that you then take out of that account, we end up with what's the final balance. And then we have to subtract out that unallowed $2,000. So don't take the money out. That's a pro tip. Don't put it in, but if you put it in, don't take it out because it doubles the problem. Okay, really, really important early on in the process. You're thinking about buying a home, that if you have cash at home, do not deposit the cash. I have strategies to help you with using the cash. One of the simplest strategies, spend the cash. Use the cash to pay for gasoline. Use the cash to pay for groceries. Use the cash to pay for your haircut or anything else that you're doing. Now, you might say, well, John, why does that help? Because it means your paychecks went into your bank account and they stayed there. Versus what you normally do is you swipe, swipey, swipe, and you're charging everything against your ATM card. No big deal. It's just cash. But there's a big difference. When the money comes in direct deposit to your bank, that money is usable immediately. I know where it came from. Some people wonder, gosh, they overthink it, by the way. And they say, gosh, John, but then the bank's going to wonder how I paid for everything because I'm not withdrawing money out of my bank. We don't really care. What we care is the money that we're using for down payment and closing costs, that we can see where it came from. So if you have cash, spend the cash. Don't swipe your card. That's the best way to use the cash and help you to have a larger down payment that we can actually use for qualification. Okay, cash includes not only your down payment, but it includes your closing costs. Sometimes it also includes reserves. Depending upon the type of loan, typically this is jumbo loans or loans over the limit for the local area that you're in. So for high cost counties, that limit might be $1 million plus. For the average county across the country, the conventional and FHA limits are somewhere at 725 or below. So if you're at a high price, you might need more reserves required. So cash really is how much do you have for down payment, how much do you have for closing costs, and how much do you have for reserves? But we have programs to help you with that. I'll share in a couple minutes how we handle that. Now, the second thing we care about is credit. Credit is how well you've paid your bills in the past, because how well you've paid your bills in the past is the best indicator for how well you're going to pay your bills in the future. So credit is 50 shades of gray. Credit is incremental. You saw earlier in this masterclass when I was talking about being a first-time home buyer and the Affordable Advantage program, and you saw the charts called the LLPA matrix. That chart is what I mean when I say it's 50 shades of gray. You might have a program that says you just have to be a 640 credit score to qualify. Okay, but if you're 640, you're going to have the worst interest rate. 660, a little better rate. 690, a little better rate. 780, the best rate. So credit is incremental. And with credit, we look at the 3 credit scores, from the 3 credit agencies, Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion. We throw away the highest and we throw away the lowest, and we use the middle of the 3 credit scores. And if there's 2 people on the application, we take each person separately, throw away your highest and lowest, throw away your highest and lowest. We each have the middles. And between the 2 of you, we use the worst of the 2 of you, because we didn't go to kindergarten. Because in kindergarten, didn't we all learn that if you didn't have anything nice to say, you shouldn't say anything at all? Well, in my world, if we don't have anything nice to say, we're going to point it out. I'm just kidding. But the point is, we do take the worst of both situations or both people on the application. So credit is critical. Credit is something that I help guide you through. So the first thing that we're going to do before we meet is we're going to collect information from you, and we're going to do a soft credit pull. That soft credit doesn't cost you anything, and the soft credit doesn't impact your credit score. And I usually just pull 1 credit agency for the soft credit, because it's really just a peek behind the curtain to see what it looks like. We're kind of taking the temperature of your credit, and we can run what's called our what if simulator. So I can simulate changes to your credit that says, hey, what if I paid down this debt? What if I opened a new credit card? What if I closed this account or paid off this collection? What's that going to mean to my credit score? And what about time? What if I pay these things off and wait 6 months? How does that help my credit score? And so it's a forecasting tool that allows us to help give you really, really good advice on how to improve your credit. The third thing that we care about is income. So the third key is how much money do you make? Now we look at gross income and we have a ratio that says we will allow you to spend a certain percentage of your gross income towards all of your bills, your credit cards, your car payments, your student loans, and your house payment. So that's a formula I'm going to walk through with you, and we're going to come up with a number. We're going to come up with two numbers. We're going to come up with the number I'm going to let you spend. We're going to come up with the number that you're comfortable spending. And then we're going to Rochambeau to see whose number went. I'm kidding. What we're going to do is we're going to then say, look, how close are our numbers? If my number that I'm going to let you spend is a lot higher than your number that you're comfortable spending, we'll have a conversation about, well, what can you buy at the payment you want? And then what's it going to take to get you the house that you really want? What's that payment? As long as you're not exceeding the number I'm going to let you spend, you're in control. You can buy anything you want. I had a client last week that I talked to that they said they wanted to spend about $2,700 to maybe $3,000 a month. And I showed them what that was going to buy them. And I said, by the way, I'm going to let you spend $5,000 a month towards your payment. And their jaws hit the ground. And I said, but there's such a big difference between what I would let you spend and what you're comfortable spending. Help me understand. Do you spend a lot of money or do you save a lot of money? And they said, no, we save a lot. And so I explained to them that maybe they stop investing in their high yield savings account and transition some of that money into investing in the wealth building effect of a home. I got that aggressive. Shift their investment from one thing to another. And that's a way that I can get them closer to what I will let them spend. But sometimes it's the opposite. Sometimes you have income that I don't know about or I can't use, or you have family members that are living in the home that are helping you make the payment, but I can't count that towards the payment. So you say, John, I can afford $4,000 a month. And I say, yeah, but based on your income, your gross income's $4,000 a month. And after taxes, you can't afford more than $2,000 a month. And that's a different argument or different challenge. At that point, what we do is we look at using a cosigner. So a cosigner doesn't give you better interest rates. It doesn't help you with credit scores. What it does is it helps you with income. Because with a cosigner, you can add their income to yours, their debts to yours. And as long as the grand total is doable, as long as grand total is within what I would allow, the cosigner helps increase the amount of income that I'm counting for you. And it allows me to stretch the number that I will let you spend. So that's where cosigners come into play, is on the income piece. Now, the fourth piece, I said there's three keys, but there's a fourth piece, and the fourth piece is the property. So we care about the property. Now, the first three things, cash, credit, income, they play off of each other. So if you have not very much money in cash for down payment and closing costs, but you got great credit and great income, I can find a way. If you've got a huge down payment and you've got great credit, I've got programs that you don't have to have any income at all. If you've got good income and good down payment, I've got programs that will let you buy with really poor credit scores. So if you're poor in any one of those three areas, I have a solution. It's when you're poor in two or three of them, we have a problem. We got to work on it. But the property, I separate out. Why? Because the property doesn't get offset by the other three. You can have great cash down payment, great credit, great income. I'm still not going to use those as a factor to offset the requirements for value, condition, and type of property. So what do those three things mean? Value. The property's got to be worth what you're paying for it. So if you're the only one willing to spend that much money for that home and that nobody else has bought a home like that anywhere near that price, we're worried. So the appraiser is going to tell us how much he thinks this house would sell compared to what other homes like it have sold for. The second thing the appraiser is going to tell us is the condition of the home. So people say, oh my gosh, John, the seller is selling this one as is. We don't have to worry about condition. I don't know about you, but the seller's not loaning you the money. I am. So the mortgage industry decides whether we're comfortable with the condition of the property. And just because the seller is selling it as is doesn't mean we're going to allow you to borrow $500,000 on a house in that condition. So the appraiser is going to be my eyes and ears to tell me what is the condition of the home and what things need to be done. But here's the deal. We're not looking to make the home nice. We're not looking to make the home pretty. We're looking to make sure that the home is three things. It is safe with no health and safety hazards, and it's livable. That's it. So if it's safe, you're not going to cut yourself. There's no safety issues, there's no health hazards, and it's livable, then we're fine with it. Now, there's a lot of in between there, but that's a really good general explanation. The type of property. It's important to understand that most people are buying single-family residences, but for example, if you buy a condo, the rules are different. The rules on, we might accept you, but reject the condominium complex because it doesn't have the fiscal or financial health that the mortgage industry is looking for. You also might have manufactured homes. You might have duplexes, triplexes, and fourplexes. All of those types of properties come with different sets of rules and requirements. So just be aware of that fact as you're in the home buying process. So let's talk about types of loans. I'm not going to go too deep into this, but basically conventional loans are what you've heard of, kind of the normal type of a loan. A conventional loan is backed by one of two companies, Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac. Now, my company is what is called a direct seller servicer. We sell our loans directly to Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, but we also actually are unique because we're one of the very few companies in the nation that are what they call broker banker. So as a mortgage banker, we are the bank and we're just getting the money through Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. But sometimes there's programs or companies out there that are discounting their loans heavily or giving guidelines that are outside of what the normal guidelines are. And so we have the ability to broker your loan and send it to those companies. And so that's an opportunity where we're able to help serve you as a one-stop shop, because it's kind of like insurance. If you know anything about insurance, there's really two worlds of insurance companies. You've got an agent that works for the parent company. So that's going to be a State Farm, a Farmers, an Allstate, something like that. And then you've got brokers that are, or insurance companies that are actual brokers. And so either way, it's a different type of experience you're going to get, because the captive agent, the one that works for State Farm, Allstate, Farmers, Nationwide, they only write policies from their company, versus a broker doesn't have a company behind them. They only write policies by sending your information to somebody else, and they have no control or very little control. Well, my company allows me to do both. So if you're best served by us doing it in-house, and 9 times out of 10 you are, we handle it all in-house. If you're not, we'll broker it and we'll take great care of you either way. So a conventional loan is a loan amount up to $726,200 that changes every single year. Ideally, you want 10% down or more, although you can put as little as 3, you're going to pay for it. So 10% down or better, ideally a 740 credit score, although the minimum score is 620. And ideally, you're looking at around 28 to 36% of your income being spent towards your bills. Then there's government-backed loans. So government-backed loans are FHA, VA, and USDA. Now, VA is one of the best loan programs out there for people who have served our country and have a small or no down payment. Absolutely an amazing program. USDA is really specific because USDA is a program that's designed for rural communities. Hey, I said it right the first time. Rural. I sound like Scooby-Doo now. Rural communities. So a rural community is a lower population community across the country. There's a map that we can get on USDA's website, and there's pretty severe income limits. The cool thing about USDA is 0 down payments. The cool thing about VA, 0 down payments. FHA requires 3.5% down. And remember, I said earlier, FHA does not require you to be a first-time homebuyer. So cash anywhere from 0 down on USDA or VA to FHA requiring 3.5% down. Credit score, much, much more forgiving on these programs. Ideal is anything above 640. And your minimum credit on a lot of them are down to as low as 580. And we'll let you spend between 33 and 45% of your income on average. Sometimes we can go even higher. Jumbo loan, I won't spend a lot of time on. We've got a lot of options if you're looking at a higher priced home, but in general, jumbo loans, you need about 20% down or better is ideal. Sometimes you can get as little as 10% down, but your credit requirements are a lot tighter and your debt to income ratio requirements are a lot tighter. All right. So you got loan programs, but one of the things that people talk a lot about, especially when you're a first-time home buyer, is, John, what's it going to cost me to buy the home? There's two things you're looking at. You're looking at down payments and you're looking at closing costs. Now, down payment depends on the program on how much you're putting as a down payment, but that money can come from your money, a gift, or from a down payment assistance program. Thank you for the pause as I wet my whistle again. All right, closing costs, they average 3% or maybe $10,000 to $15,000 as kind of a bare minimum of a number. So I say $10,000 to $15,000 because that's really the average low end. If you're buying a $250,000 home, your closing costs are not $7,500. They're more like $10,000 to $12,000 because a lot of the fees that you pay don't change based upon your purchase price. We charge $1,099 for administering your loan, for underwriting and the work that we do on our end, and we charge $695 for processing the loan. So we charge that regardless of whether you're buying a $200,000 home or a $2 million home. So those dollars are a bigger percentage of the smaller priced homes. So just be aware that you say, hey, John, 3% down, that's about, $8,000. Now, 10 to 15 grand is probably reasonable. Now, if you're buying a $700,000 home, you're probably looking at 3% or about $21,000 is a pretty reasonable estimate. What you're looking at is the closing costs can come from any of the three options above, the buy your own funds, gift funds, or a down payment assistance program. But they also can come from a seller credit or from a lender credit. Now, why is a seller going to give you money? Well, first of all, because you're still netting them or giving them the best total amount of money compared to anybody else who was writing an offer on their home. That's the real big picture. Now, there's a lot of little things in between that. Sellers are looking for the most amount of money with the least amount of risk. So that's why oftentimes a cash buyer can get a home for even cheaper price because there's very little risk to the seller that the deal's going to fall apart. If you're asking the seller for a credit, you have to be careful because sellers, especially in today's market, they're highly emotional. They expect their home to be selling for a whole lot more. And so if you say to them, hey, I want you to pay 3% towards my closing costs, but I'll offer you full price or more than full price on your home. I'll bump the price of this home from $700,000 to $720,000. But I want you to give me 3%, which is about, 22 grand. Well, really, you're giving them almost their whole amount that they wanted. And that makes the seller emotionally feel like, man, this is a better deal. Now, they still might take an offer from somebody that's offering them $700,000 without a seller credit, because that transaction only needs to appraise for $700,000. Your house, your transaction would have to appraise for $720,000. So I'm really good at explaining all of this stuff when it comes to your particular situation, but in the time that we have allotted tonight, I'm going to leave the seller credit conversation there and just explain it as it's something that impacts your negotiation. And you've got to talk to your realtor about what is the best strategy given the competition and who else you're competing with to purchase that home. The last way you can pay for it's a lender credit. Now, John, why would you give me a lender credit? Well, the reason why is because I'm a super nice guy. No, I am a super nice guy, but that's not the reason why we give you lender credit. It's because you're paying us a higher interest rate over the life of the loan. Think about that for a minute. I give you 1% extra money up front, but you got to pay me 0.5% extra every year for the next 30 years. Well, if you only keep the loan for 1 year, it's a pretty good deal for you because you only paid 0.5% extra and I gave you 1% up front. Keep the loan for 5 years and it's a pretty good deal for me because you paid me 2.5% extra and I only gave you 1% up front. Here's the deal though. In today's market, there isn't room for lenders to bump up the interest rates any higher. They're as high as they will go. And the banking world knows everybody's going to refinance these likely in the next year or so when interest rates come back down. So the mortgage world is not going to lose money on purpose by writing a check to pay for closing costs on your behalf in exchange for a higher rate that they know you have an even higher rate, and therefore it makes you more likely to refinance sooner. So in this market, lender credits are rare and hard to come by. but it is a concept that can work in certain market conditions. And you can also use assistance programs. There are a lot of them. As a reminder, this coming Monday, July 31st, a week and a half from now, I'll be doing a webinar at 7 o'clock at night about the California Dream for All Assistance Program that's going to be coming out sometime in the next 11 months. But here's an example of some grant programs. There's a program that offers grants for people in the state of California who are medical and healthcare workers, law enforcement, firefighters, education, people who work in the education field. And what's kind of interesting is there's a list of certain counties that if you are an employee of the county, you can get a grant program if you're an employee of any one of these counties in the state of California. So it is not a resident of those counties. It's people who are employees of those counties can qualify for some assistance, some additional assistance through one of our down payment assistance programs. So let's talk about what the process is going to look like as you're going through purchasing a home. The first thing I'll tell you is it's tough. Anybody who tells you push button, get mortgage, it's super easy to get a home loan, that's for the guy who wrote the TV commercial, not the guy who's doing the home loan. You can't push a button and get a mortgage. Matter of fact, if you go to that company that advertises push button and get mortgage, you push the button, your phone rings within 30 seconds. I kid you not. Like, you don't get a mortgage by pushing a button. You get a mortgage by talking to people. And you want to make sure the person who's guiding you has the experience to guide you. There's a website you can look up any mortgage person, not just the company, but the person. I had a client last week who was telling me they're getting phone calls from a bank that said they can do things that I said they couldn't do. And as this client worked with me multiple times, and I said, we've done a lot of business together. Do you trust me? And he said, yeah. And I said, great, because the guy's lying to you. And so he tells the guy no. And then the guy calls back again, and the client calls me again and says, John, I don't know what to do because this guy's telling me that he can do all of these things and you're telling me it can't be done. And so I went to this NMLS Consumer Access is the website. And I looked up this guy. This guy's actually been in the industry for 14 years. He's worked for 9 mortgage companies in the last 7 years. And he's been unemployed 4 times on an average of 3 to 6 months of unemployment during that same time frame. I don't know about you, but that's not somebody I'm going to want to trust. I've worked for 3 mortgage companies in the last 22 years. 3 companies in 22 years, never with a day of unemployment, because I know what I'm doing and I've built a strong business. So this is a challenging environment. We've got regulation, we've got the economy's in flux, we've got inflation, we've got war, we've got all of these things going on. So who you choose to do your mortgage matters more than ever, because here's the deal. Going through this process of buying a home is just like flying in an airplane. So if you've ever flown in an airplane, you know that you have no idea whether you're going to hit turbulence or not. As a matter of fact, they're saying turbulence is getting even worse now, so you can pretty much plan on it. But if you really think about it, it's not the pilot's fault you ran into turbulence. The pilot's job is to navigate through the turbulence and sometimes try and go around it by checking the radar, talking to other planes that just flew through that area, and making a flight path that minimizes the turbulence. But sometimes they don't have a choice but to fly straight through it. Because if they tried to fly too far around it, they're going to run out of gas and crash, or they're going to get you there too late. Either way, you're going to be really unhappy if they crash, and you're going to be pretty unhappy if you get there late. So sometimes the only option is to fly through the turbulence. I can pretty much guarantee you there'll be turbulence in your purchase transaction. There are 34 different people that touch your transaction from the time that you get a contract accepted until the time that you get the keys. 34 different people. And it is a challenging process that comes up with issues that you didn't even know existed. I'm still surprised by issues periodically, and I've been doing this for a long, long time. So just understand, I'm your pilot, I'm in the cockpit the entire time, and I'm helping guide you through the process, but we will hit turbulence. There'll be a point in time where you're going to call your friend or your wife or your real estate agent and say, oh my God, I can't believe John and his team are asking for that piece of paper. We're going to ask for every piece of paper, and we're going to ask for it 3 times. Hopefully not 3 times, but we are going to ask for it a couple of times, and I'll explain that in a second. So what's going to happen is when you start the process, you're going to get pre-qualified or pre-approved. We review everything. I don't pre-qualify people. That just means you told me how much you make and I believe you and I write you a letter. But a pre-approval is me running it through, verifying, pulling your credit, taking a look at your income, taking a look at your bank statements. The problem is we got to do that all over again. because that information is only good for 30 days. So if you happen to be fortunate enough to get pre-approved with me, like owner is going to do on Monday, and then you start shopping for a home and you get a contract accepted a week later, I don't need to get the paperwork all over again. Good news. But most of the time, when you're in step 2 of shopping for a home, that can be a 4 to 14 to 30 week journey. Depends on how picky you are. And this is a market that you don't need to settle, but you cannot be that picky, because you're being extremely picky. There isn't enough inventory. There aren't enough homes for sale for the number of people that want them. And as I said at the beginning of this, when I was talking about, is this a good time to buy or not? The fact of the matter is the number of homes for sale compared to buyers is going to get worse as interest rates come back down. So when you get pre-approved, you do not lock your interest rate. By the way, I have the option to lock your rate, but you have to write me a deposit check up front. You have to find a house within the next 60 days and close in a total of 90 days, or you lose the check you paid up front and you lose the interest rate you locked in. Doesn't sound like a good risk to me, and I've never advised somebody to do it. So you don't lock your interest rate in the beginning. You lock your interest rate once you find a home and you get your offer accepted. So it's kind of like when you're shopping for airline tickets and you're looking online and you're saying, oh my gosh, the airline ticket, Southwest, $59 each way. Okay, I'll talk to my wife and tomorrow I'll log in and I'll buy it. And then the next day it's $89 each way. You're like, oh, okay. I'll just wait until it comes back down to 59. Murphy's Law, it never comes back down to 59. It keeps going up. And every time you check, you're like, oh my gosh, I should have bought it 89 because now it's 110. And next thing you know, it's $150 each way on Southwest when you could have gotten it for $59. So just understand, when you have the option to lock, I advise people to lock. To play the market, when you only have a 30-day escrow, and sometimes a lot faster. We're closing deals as quickly as 14 days. I got a client into contract over the weekend. We have their loan fully approved. We're just waiting for the appraisal, and we're going to close their transaction next Friday. So it's going to be literally 13 days from start to finish. You don't have a lot of time that if the market jumps up and rates jump up and you didn't lock, you don't have a lot of time to hope that it comes back down. You can't control when you get your offer accepted. You can't control if that was the day after interest rates just shot up. They're highly volatile. But the fact is, when you get your offer accepted, if rates have gone from 6.75 to 8.75, you can cancel the transaction. You have a contingency. It's actually something I talked about in one of my prior master classes, is the contingencies that you have in your contract. So once you find that home, that's when we lock your interest rate, and that's when we order your appraisal. We then send the file through processing and underwriting. That's the final decision-making in the loan process. Once you're done with all of that, then you're able to sign your documents. The most important thing to understand about signing is that's when you bring in the rest of your money. So the money that you need, which I think I covered in my May How to Buy Masterclass, what kind of money do you need and when do you need it in the home buying process? So look for that in my YouTube channel. You will pay up front at the time you find your home. You pay for the appraisal. You pay for your upfront deposit that is the seller's guarantee. You're not going to just willy-nilly change your mind. And you pay for any inspections on the home. And you also pay for your credit report if you haven't already paid for it. But it's step 5, when you are signing your loan documents with the notary, that's when you bring in the rest of your money for the down payment and the closing costs. Now, during this time of processing and underwriting, we've got to know where the money is at. We're going to document everything, and we need to see the movement of your money everywhere that it moves. Once you sign the documents, that's when you actually will, within 2 days, typically 2 to 3 days, we record the transfer of ownership into your name, and you get the keys to your brand new home. And then you start moving into the house. Just make sure you stack your boxes better on the hand cart, better than what these people did on this one. All right. So I want to talk about a few more topics before we wrap up. We've got 10 minutes left. If you have any questions you haven't posted yet, whether you're watching on Facebook live stream, whether you're watching on Zoom or watching recorded later, please post your questions. I want to make this as interactive as I can. There are 3 major benefits, financial benefits of owning a home. The one that everybody thinks about is appreciation, and it's the one that everybody's freaked out about because they're saying, you know what? I don't know. These home prices haven't gone up very much. They went up a lot in 2020 and 2021, and between 2022 and now, they've kind of leveled off. I think it's a bad time to buy a home. Guess what? House prices go up and they go down over time, but they don't go down very often and they don't go down very much. The worst time in house appreciation was in 2007, when home prices crashed between 2007 and 2011. By 2015, they were back to where they started. So there's never been a 10-year period in history where house prices ended that 10-year period lower than where they started. Over every 10-year period in history, prices have always gone up. And the average that they go up across the country is 2% per year. California, it's typically 3 to 6% per year, but in the coastal states, it's typically more. Prices go up more. In this across the United States, it's about 2% per year. So in this example, if you bought a $350,000 home, your house is appreciating by a simple number of 2% per year. That's $7,000. Casey, I see your question, and I'll address it here in just a second. Okay, yeah, I'll cover that question in a second. So your appreciation is $7,000 a year on average. If you average that out, that's $583 a month. So when you think about how much I'm paying in rent versus how much extra I'm paying in a mortgage, these are the monthly averages of how much money you're saving or building in wealth that you would not have if you were a renter. So that's the one that everybody talks about. But here's the two that other people don't talk about. The least talked about is what I like to call the forced savings account. Because every time you make a house payment, you're paying for principal, interest, taxes, insurance, and mortgage insurance. Well, guess what? The interest is a tax write-off. You'll see that over there. The property taxes are a tax write-off. Your insurance is not. Your mortgage insurance sometimes is a tax write-off. But the principal, the first thing that you paid is you paid down the balance of your home. The principal is your money. You owed $300,000 and you made a payment. $300 of that went to the balance. Therefore, you only owe $299,700. The following month, you only owe $299,400. That is you building equity, because the price of the home stayed the same or went up, but the loan amount, what you owed, went down. That difference is the equity in the home. You're putting money into your own pocket every single month. It's just not money you can get back right away. It's like putting money into your 401k. You're putting it in, you're putting it in, you're putting it in, and you're pretending it's not there. And sooner or later, boom, you're a millionaire. That's the key to home ownership. The other thing that people talk about a fair amount is your tax write-off. It's probably the most obscure of the options or of the savings, because it depends on what your tax structure is. It depends on what other write-offs you have. And so this one is really specific to the individual. But the fact of the matter is, it's a pretty big amount of money. It's $590 a month just on a $350,000 home with 10% down. You're saving $590 a month in this example in property or in mortgage in tax savings. You add this together, you're saving $1,475 a month, or building wealth at the pace of almost $1,500 a month for a $350,000 home. Owner, we buy that $700,000 home in San Diego, and it's double that. You're almost getting $3,000 in tax savings, forced appreciation, forced savings, and appreciation. Anyway, read what I said. Don't listen to what I'm saying. All right. Now, Casey asked a question. He said, can we get a grant for working at a hospital service? Maybe. So it depends on what your job title is, what industry you're in can impact. We basically send your pay stub into the grant provider to find out if they find that to be an acceptable position within that industry. Here's the thing, kind of like what I said earlier about, do I really want those benefits? The grant program that's designed for health workers is tied to a specific loan program. So unlike the Housing Affordability Fund, that's just a free 10 grand that goes to anybody, no matter what type of loan, most grant programs, including the one I talked about for healthcare workers, is tied to a specific loan program, and you pay higher interest rates for that benefit. So it can be worth it if you were already going to use down payment assistance. Getting some of that down payment assistance as a grant is amazing. If you weren't using down payment assistance, this grant program is not for you, because you're actually put into the category of down payment assistance. You're paying higher interest rates, you're paying higher fees to get the assistance. The benefit is some of the assistance is a grant instead of being a loan. So hopefully that helps. All right. So how do we figure out the monthly payment on the house, John? Like, how do I even know what my payment's going to be? The best way to do it, the best tool is my mobile app. So if you don't already have my mobile app, scan this QR code, you'll download my mobile app. When you get in there, click this button down at the bottom for the calculator, and then you can click on here and you can click on new purchase. And I'm going to hit play on this little video, and you'll see it's going to say new purchase. And then you pick on what type of loan. So we'll say FHA. And then right here, you can change your sales price by moving this slider. You can change your down payment by moving this slider. You can change the interest rate by clicking on it and typing in the rates. We try and keep it close to market rates. I think right now it's ballparked at 6.75. You can change your down payments. You can change your credit score of what you think your credit score is. And all of these changes adjust the monthly payment up here so that you can see all of this stuff. Click calculate, and it gives you a breakdown of all of what your payment is going to be. And then you can see a table of every single month, how much is principal and interest, and you can share that as a PDF. So that you can, if you want to save those numbers, you can share that as a PDF. So if you don't already have my mobile app, scan this QR code now, download the mobile app, and you're able to run your own numbers. Remember, interest rates change every single day. We update this about once a month with ballpark of interest rates, but every program has a different rate. So I think, again, it's right now in the mid sixes that it's ballparked to, but it allows you to run your numbers. You have to be super careful when you get payment figures from an online website, because they make a lot of other assumptions that make the math not be accurate. Maybe they are not using accurate property taxes. Maybe they're assuming that you're putting a really big down payment. There's a lot of things that come into play that our calculator does a really good job of calculating for you. All right, so last thing I want to cover before I talk about next steps as we wrap up here in the last 2 minutes. Who you get your financing with matters more than ever. I think this is the third time I've said one of my jobs right now is to educate you. The second job is to convince you to use me. Convince you to use me. I'm interviewing for the job to be your lender, and I'm honored to have the opportunity to interview for that job. 5 things that I think make the difference in what lender you choose. A, their reputation. I've spent 23 years calling an amazing reputation, and that reputation is growing through avenues like social media and the platforms of education that I provide to people. That reputation matters because a listing agent is going to look at your offer, and if your offer is similar to somebody else's, they're going to say, who's the lender? If it's somebody they know or somebody they trust, they're more likely to accept it, especially if it is a regional bank or a mortgage bank instead of being an internet lender or a broker, because that can create less control over the process. What we do pre-offer, I call the listing agents. I explain to them the benefits of accepting your offer. I tell them everything about how well qualified you are, and I explain how we take great care of them and communicating with them. That won't get you the home over somebody offering significantly more, but I've seen it make the difference many times when there's multiple offers that are close to one another, and the realtor says to the seller, look, this lender, he called me and already communicated with me, and that tells me that if there's a problem later on, he's proactive in his communication. Out of these 3 that are pretty similar, let's go with the one that has the lender that's being proactive. We can fully underwrite your credit, your income, and your assets ahead of time if that's necessary to give you a stronger offer and a quicker close. And that allows you to remove some contingencies. So we're going to talk, when we get together to do our one-on-one consultation, we'll talk about contingencies and which ones you may or may not want to remove. And I already talked earlier about the fact that we can close quickly. The truth is, everybody can close quickly right now, but the faster the transaction goes, the more the lender has to be on top of it. Some lenders are on autopilot. They just plain say, you know what? It'll take care of itself. I'm not worried about it. I'm gonna go find my next deal. But the fact is, myself, my team, we stay focused on taking great care of you through the entire process. So let's talk about, this is my final screen. Let's talk about the next steps. So first of all, the next step is to download my mobile app if you haven't already done so. You'll see this in the top corner. Hopefully my face isn't covering that QR code, but you can, if you can't get to the QR code, go to apply.johnloanking.com and you can download the mobile app there as well. That mobile app has the calculator, but it also has how to apply. So it's the actual loan application itself. It serves as a secure tool to upload documents directly to us. And the final thing I'll tell you is if you're not already subscribed to my YouTube channel, please, please, please subscribe. I do market updates and real estate news most Fridays. The last couple of weeks I haven't done them, but most Fridays I do a live stream at noon on Friday. I'm doing one tomorrow. Tomorrow's live stream is how to buy a home after a bankruptcy. So if you've had a bankruptcy, if you know somebody who's had a bankruptcy, that's a great topic that they're going to want to tune into. It'll also be part of my YouTube library that I have full of home buying and homeowners tips. So scan right here to get to my YouTube channel, and please subscribe, click the notification bell to get notified when I post new videos, and please like, share, and comment on those, because that helps me to grow the reach of people that are watching and listening and getting educated through my content. So I really, really appreciate you joining me today. If you have any other questions, I'll stay on for a quick second. Otherwise, I appreciate your time tonight. I'm looking forward to talking with you soon. And thank you for the opportunity for me to interview, to be your lender, and to guide you through the home buying process. All right, everybody. Hope you have an absolutely wonderful evening. Enjoy your night. Try and stay cool, and we'll have a great weekend. Bye-bye.